Hi guys, I'm Miss K. I'm an English teacher by day. By night, I read a heck of a lot of books, and I started a YouTube channel to share my thoughts and opinions on these books with you. If you like my channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I drop a new video. If you particularly like this video, make sure you hit the like and maybe leave a comment down below. Today, we are talking the infamous J.R. Ward's Dark Lover series. This is the first in the Black Dagger Brother series. And if you haven't heard of it, I mean, that's okay. But what world are you living in if you love vampires and you have never heard of J.R. Ward? I don't know. So this is the first in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. Our main character featured on the cover, his name is Wrath, and he is the last pure-blood vampire in existence. Vampires live in and among the human world, but they are kind of a secretive community, so to speak, very closed door, very hush-hush. And so he is the last pure-blood of his kind. There are no others in existence. He's it. He's kind of like the king. And as much as his people would love to acknowledge him as king, he doesn't want that. So he is the last pure-blood vampire of his kind, which makes him incredibly powerful. It also renders him very blind. He did not go through the transition well. In this particular world that J.R. Ward has developed, when vampires are born, they're born more or less human, but when they reach a certain age, like adolescence, they end up transitioning. It's a period called transition period, from human to more vampire. They can no longer walk in the daylight. They need to feed on blood. Their fangs extend, and it can be very deadly. He survived it, but he lost his sight due to that. So he's very powerful. He belongs to the Black Dagger Brotherhood. He's the leader. That is the elite group of vampire brothers who very violent, very deadly, all alpha male characters, and some are more evil than others. Now, then you have Beth Randall, who she is half vampire, half human. She just doesn't know that she's half vampire. And she didn't have much of a childhood growing up, going from foster home to foster home. So she's kind of been on her own. Her vampire father has watched over her, and he asks Wrath to kind of take her in under his wing as she goes through her period of transition as well. She's probably not likely to survive it without Wrath's blood, considering she knows nothing about vampires in the vampire world up to this point. The vampire society is definitely on the outs. Their population has dwindled so much. Female vampires can only get pregnant about once every 10 years. And even then, it is a very high infant mortality rate among vampires, even more so for maternal mortality rates. Mothers and babies often don't survive. So the vampires themselves are on the outs. Their population is set for extinction. And to help that extinction along, you have the lessening society, because while there are vampires, there will always be vampire hunters. Mr. X is part of a chapter of those vampire hunters led by the Omega. Now, the Omega, it's a little bit fuzzy in here. You don't have a really good picture of who he is, but from what I can gather, he's basically the devil himself. And he has created this group of soulless humans, I guess is the best way. They're called lessers. And part of the lessening society that Mr. X is involved in, Mr. X himself is a lesser, they eliminate vampires. And they have been doing this since, since the dawn of time. The lessening society and lessers, their numbers are increasing while vampires are dwindling. And so things are not looking good for Wrath and his Black Dagger Brotherhood and his species as a whole. So Wrath goes through, helps Beth through this change, saves her from Mr. X. Ultimately, the two do fall in love together and they get married. And it is only after that point that Wrath acknowledges his kingship and decides to lead his people. It's a really good little story. These are available. I have the mass market paperback ones that you can buy for like $9. That's how much mine costs. These are older books. That's something I just want to mention, is that these are not the Twilight vampires. This is pre-Twilight, ladies and gentlemen. Kristen Stewart and Rob Pattinson came out with their famous movie in 2005. That made Stephanie Meyer famous, and everyone suddenly loved vampires and werewolves. This is pre-Twilight. This is from 2005. Twilight didn't come out until 2008. So this is pre-Twilight, ladies and gentlemen, that we're working with here. So it's not going to be like the vampires that you see today. I like this version a lot better. I think it paints a darker picture of vampires. It paints a more survival picture for vampires, where vampires are on the outs and they're basically struggling to survive as a species so that they can go on and continue. And I like that. Each book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood, because there's like, oh gosh, 30 some books in this series, you don't have to read them all together or in an order. They can each be read individually. They are their own separate story. So what would I give this particular book? I would give this an 8 out of 10. The language is a little bit older, which might be off-putting to some readers. They're not cutesy vampires like you see. They don't remind you of Edward Cullen and Carlisle Cullen and Emmett Cullen and all of the Cullens in the Twilight books. So I would give this an 8 out of 10. It is really good. I will probably get more of the Black Dagger Brotherhood and read more J.R. Ward. And again, if you're a fan of vampires and you haven't picked up any of her stuff, why haven't you? Like, she's famous for her vampire books. So let me know what you thought of Dark Lover in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you drop a like, and I'll make sure to review some more J.R. Ward books. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, happy reading.